Good day, gardeners. This is Dick Zondig, the Garden Doctor, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about preparing potatoes for planting. So potatoes are two types. They're determinate and indeterminate. The determinate types of potatoes tend to have their potatoes in a horizontal arrangement, and they don't go up and down the vine, where indeterminate potatoes will get longer vines and they will have potatoes all along the vines. And so by determining which type of potato you have, it will help you in how you plant them. And we're going to be planting potatoes this year in several different ways so that we can see which ways work the best. First off, we're going to do potatoes in ground the way normally people have planted them for years and years and years. Secondly, we're going to plant the potatoes in the ground, but we're going to cover them with hay or straw and keep them covered with the hay or straw so that they make the potatoes in the straw. Thirdly, we're going to grow potatoes in a cardboard box. Seen that on the YouTube on several different channels, and we're going to try that. And fourthly, we're going to grow them in 5-gallon containers. And so what we have to do to prepare our potatoes is we have to cut them up. So we recommend certified seed potatoes because they've been grown under conditions that will keep them from having diseases. And so I've had some potatoes here. This is a variety called Silverton. They were in a plastic bag, so they've kind of gotten away from me a little bit, but they have the eyes and they actually have some roots initiated. But what you want to do is cut them up so that you get a piece of about 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. And when you cut them, we have some garden lime here. And we're going to coat the cut surface in garden lime so that it dries up that cut area. We're going to put them in a warm room so that they have a week to 10 days to callus over. And during that time it grows like a second skin, so when you put them in the ground, if we get cold, wet weather, they won't start rotting immediately, which if you cut them and put them in the ground, that cut surface is immediately available to the microorganisms that would start decomposing them. So what we're going to do now is cut the potatoes up so that we have 1 or 2 eyes, and you can see from this that the eyes have already started to grow a little bit. So this is a process called chitting that gets those eyes going. And so we're going to cut them so that they have 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces. So we cut that cut surface and we dust the end of it in the lime. And then we put it in a clean container. Here we have 2 eyes, so we can cut there. And the third piece is this piece here. So we'll speed this up while we cut them up. Okay, there we have our potatoes cut up and ready to plant. So we'll put them aside for a week. If you want to plant the whole potato, that's fine, but I think cutting them into this size pieces will be just as good as putting the whole potatoes in. Okay, here we are back in about a week. The potatoes have healed over properly, and we're going to prepare the pails for planting the potatoes. One of the things that you have to remember is that you're going to be watering these potatoes quite a bit, and you want to make sure that the water that's excess drains off. So even though these are really nice 5-gallon buckets, we're going to drill holes in them. So we have 5 holes drilled in this pail. So we're going to plant the potatoes 4 pieces in a 5-gallon drum. So what we're going to do is put about 4 or 5 inches of compost, and this is a very well drained compost. It has sand and peat and compost in it. So we put about 4 or 5 inches of sand in the compost in the bottom. And now we're just going to put a little bit of bone meal to get the things off to a good start. So we'll put the bone meal in there, kind of mix it in a little bit, and then we'll put our pieces with the sprouts oriented up, and you put 2 of them in at 6 and 12 if this was a clock. Then we're going to put about 12 inches of compost on top of that. Put a little bone meal on top of that. Mix it in a little bit. And then we'll put the other 2 that we're going to put into the pail at 3 and at 9 o'clock, so that there are 2 at 12 and 6 and 2 at 3 and 9. And then we'll cover these up with about 4 or 5, 6 inches of the pine bark compost. And a little bit more bone meal on top. So when we water it, it takes some of the nutrients down. So we have our first pail done. I'm going to be writing the variety on the pail so we keep track of what variety's in the pail. We'll be watering it, putting it on the bench here because it's still a little bit cool outside. See if we can get some of the growth started before we put it outside. So on the bench it goes. Okay, now we're going to plant a cardboard box and see if that works better than the pails. Not going to drill any holes because the water can get out of the box fairly easily. So we're just going to put the compost, sand, peat mix in the bottom of the box. Going to space the potatoes out about 6 inches. Plant them with the sprouts up. Use some bone meal for the phosphorus to get them off to a good start. Because of the depth of the box, we're only going to put one layer in. So we're just going to Okay, I'm going to finish planting the other pails, but I'm not going to record that. So we're here at the garden and we're going to be planting our potatoes in the soil. We're going to do it two ways. We're going to plant the potatoes about 6 or 8 inches deep and then cover it with a little bit of soil and then backfill as the potatoes start to grow. And then we're going to plant a row or two where we use the straw that came off the strawberry bed and cover them with not only the 6 or 8 inches that they're deep in the soil, but we're going to cover them with about a foot of straw. And so we're going to try and see once how the potatoes grow in straw so we don't have to dig them versus the ones that we do dig. So I'll be back with you in a couple minutes. Okay, we're back. We have the trench made 6 to 8 inches deep. We're going to be planting Norland, and you can see the potatoes that were not treated to keep from sprouting. And if I would have done this normally, I probably would have cut these potatoes, but because we have a lot of potatoes left over, I'm going to leave them whole. And we're going to plant them 6 to 8 inches deep and then just cover them enough so that they can get started. So. Okay, what we're going to do with this row This is a variety called Superior. We're going to plant these, half of them in the ground and half of them above the ground. So the half that's in the ground we've made the furrow for. And we're going to follow the same thing as we did with the Red Norland, as these are not sprouted quite as well as the Red Norland, but we're going to put them in the ground so they're about 6 to 8 inches down, about 18 inches apart. And you can plant them a little closer, but your potatoes are going to be much smaller because they're too crowded. But if you like small potatoes, that's the way you should do it. And with the varieties like Kennebec that grow big potatoes, maybe you want to put them a little bit closer together so you don't get such huge potatoes. But with Superiors, which is a good baking potato, we're going to plant them at the recommended distance of 15 to 18 inches apart. Okay, we're just going to cover these up now. Okay, so we have the bed leveled. And we're just going to place the potatoes right on top of the ground with the sprouts up. Okay, now that we have our 2 rows of potatoes just about ready to leave, we should add some extra fertilizer, and I'm using bone meal because it has a lot of phosphorus in it, and phosphorus is what's used to make root growth. And so we're going to get these things off to a good start. Then when we fertilize them the next time, we'll be using some nitrogen. So right now we're just going to put a little bit of bone meal on top of the row, and we're expecting rain over the weekend, so the rain will take it down right next to the potatoes. Okay, so now we have the potatoes in the ground, we have the bone meal on top, which I'll be raking in on the rows that are in the ground to kind of mix it with the soil. We put it right on top of the ground because that's where the potatoes that we're leaving on top of the ground are going to make more use of it. So now we just take the straw again that we'd used on strawberries for overwintering and cover them up. Probably add a little bit more straw once they start to grow so that we make sure that the light can't get into the potatoes, because you don't want to have any sunlight on the potatoes because they will turn green, and of course green potatoes are not edible. They're toxic. They have oxalic acid in them and will make you quite sick. So we want to make sure that we cut all the sunlight out when the potatoes are forming. But this is basically how we're going to grow our potatoes this year. We're going to see whether planting them on the ground with straw on top of them, planting them in the ground will yield the biggest yield of potatoes. We'll be moving the pails and the cardboard box out of the greenhouse in the next week or so, and we'll probably put them at the end of the garden on a 2x4 platform so that they can drain out. This is Dick Zondag wishing you a happy garden.